Cayenne pepper changed the world. It's the first real spice that comes out of the New World and changes the flavor palette of everyone all over Europe and in fact all over the world. It's one of the first intensely flavored spices that they can grow in their very own gardens instead of relying on a ship that has to go 2,000 miles and cost them who knows how much. Now, when we think 18th century cooking, we do not think about hot and spicy, but the reality is they did have hot and spicy. They even had specific dishes like the pepper pot dish that really brings this flavor out. We're going to make that in a little bit, but first I need to tell you everything you need to know about the cayenne pepper. So we're all familiar with 1492 and Columbus going to Hispaniola. He's discovering the New World. But what is truly interesting is hot peppers shows up in one of his very first letters. He may have come back with samples of hot peppers from his very first trip. Certainly by the second trip, he is bringing something like that home. We've got the very, very popular potato, a South American New World dish that goes in and completely takes over Europe and becomes a mainstay for certain kinds of cultures. But hot peppers precede potatoes by at least 30 or 40 years. It is something that's truly introduced into Europe very, very soon after their discovery and starts to make a major difference in what's happening with European cooking and certainly later on North American cooking. One of the most confusing parts is the naming of this wonderful food source. In the 18th century, it's called something like cayenne, but earlier on it was called guinea pepper. And many times in the 18th century, it's called guinea pepper. Unfortunately, there are at least 4 different kinds of spices that would go under the name of guinea pepper in the 17th and 18th century. The first guinea pepper is grains of paradise, and it comes from the Guinea region of Africa. It was first traded by the Portuguese that were in that area, and the Portuguese had a very particular name for it. But soon after, we get the introduction of what we know as cayenne pepper into Europe, and it has a similar flavor profile. At least they thought it did in the 17th century. And so they almost immediately adopt the same name for it, although it's completely a different plant from a completely different part of the world. Even the name we use today, cayenne pepper, is a confusion of terms in the 17th and 18th century. It seems like the original word that they're basing it on is a South American tribe term for this hot pepper. And it gets adapted and morphed, spelled who knows how many different ways in the 18th century. And it kind of lands on the word cayenne, which is a port and a city in South America, but it's actually not related to the spice whatsoever. It's from a different region of South America. But somehow these words kind of all got connected and smeared together. So we call it cayenne pepper. I'm going to go ahead and refer to it as cayenne pepper, but know that that's just a kind of a modern, but even an 18th century adaptation of terms that come together. So Europe is first introduced to this wonderful hot pepper flavor by Columbus, or right in that time period. It starts to go immediately into places like botanical gardens, but it's also referred to as a food additive or even a food all by itself. People were interested in the New World and they were interested in the plants, and many times it's just for their looks. But very early, in fact, in Gerard's Herbal of the 16th century, he talks about these wonderful peppers. And not just a single variety, but he talks about 3 or 4 different varieties, showing the different shapes of the fruit and references their medicinal properties. So in this 1597 herbal, he mentions these as being hot and dry to the 4th degree. In other words, extremely hot and dry. And he means these in the medical sense, the medical term for the type of humor that this food was. Culpeper writes also about this in about 1650. He says, fiery, sharp, biting taste. And then he warns about the raw pepper being dangerous to life. In 1728, Bradley's Dictionarium Botanicum references these peppers, and he says you bruise the pods and you can use them for culinary purposes. So we know that they were already putting them in food for the flavor here in the early 18th century cookery. So what dishes are they using them in? By the time we get to the 18th century, we will find little veiled references to cayenne pepper in the 18th century cookbooks being used in just about everything. It's being used on beef and veal and pork and chicken. It's used in almost everything in all kinds of cookbooks on all kinds of dishes. So far, I've been mentioning what's happening with cayenne pepper in Europe, but what about North America? That's what I want to know, and we have more documentation here than I could imagine for cayenne pepper. This is Peter Kalm, and he is traveling in North America in the 1750s. This is pretty early. He is traveling for scientific purposes, and he is giving us all these wonderful descriptions. And here he says, Capsicum annuum, or guinea pepper. He gets the name wrong already. It likewise is planted in gardens. When the fruit is ripe, it is almost entirely red. It is put to a roasted or a boiled piece of meat, a little of it being strewn upon it or mixed with the broth. Besides this, cucumbers are pickled with it, or the pods are pounded whilst they are yet tender, and being mixed with salt are preserved in a bottle. And this spice is strewn over roasted or boiled meat or fried fish, and it gives them a very fine taste. But the fruit by itself is as biting as common pepper. He's talking about them growing it in gardens. They're not importing it. They're using it on all kinds of dishes, and they're preserving it. They're using it for pickling. It is an amazing reference here. And this isn't just a one-off. He probably didn't visit 100 gardens. He's not looking at, finding the tiny little things. He's talking about common things in North America. So right here in North America, we certainly are using hot peppers in the middle of the 18th century. But what about other references? We have a letter from 1785, George Washington. He has 2 rows of bird pepper and 1 row of regular cayenne pepper. So while cayenne pepper was used for all sorts of dishes, there are some particular dishes, and one particular one that really calls out for cayenne pepper. It is the signature part of the dish, and it is called pepper pot. And it is a famous Caribbean dish that has this hot cayenne pepper flavor to it. And it shows up in multiple different 18th century cookbooks, but there's this one reference to pepper pot I just have to read you. This is Ned Ward. He's writing in 1697, so before the 18th century. He writes a hilarious, very satirical book describing his kind of adventures in the Caribbean. And here he is talking about pepper pot. He says, they make a rare soup they call pepper pot. It is an excellent breakfast for a salamander, or a good preparative for a mountebank's agent who eats fire one day that he may get better victuals the next. 3 spoonfuls so inflamed my mouth that had I devoured a peck of horseradish and drank after it a gallon of brandy and gunpowder, I could not have been more importunate for a drop of water to cool my tongue. Apparently he thought it was kind of hot. I love that. A gallon of brandy mixed with gunpowder.
Pepper pot is the perfect recipe to highlight cayenne pepper. I've had this a few times. I've only made it once, and we're gonna make it in a different way today. That's one of the really great things about this recipe is you get your choice of different proteins and different vegetables that you want to use. It's in a ton of cookbooks, and I don't think it's ever written the exact same way twice. Our recipe today comes out of The Lady's Assistant from Charlotte Mason from 1773. To make a pepper pot, to 3 quarts of water, put a small cabbage, 2 large handfuls of spinach, a head of lettuce, 2 or 3 onions, and a little thyme. Cut them very small, let them stew with 2 pounds of mutton till they are quite tender. Boil them with some little dumplings made of flour and water and a nice piece of pork, a little salted. Half an hour before it is taken up, put in a lobster or crab, pick very small and clean from the shell with a little salt and cayenne pepper. First thing we're going to do is work on our greens because we're gonna go ahead and get those in the water and they're gonna be working as we prepare the meat. With the greens, what we wanna do is kind of think about this like, we want the opportunity to get a little bit of every green in every bite. So we're gonna cut them small, and as they cook, the cabbage is gonna stay kind of, I wouldn't say crunchy, but it's going to have some mouthfeel to it, while the spinach is just gonna wilt, and the lettuce will be somewhere in between. We'll get it all chopped up and get it in there. The next thing we're gonna do is handle our beef. Now we're using beef today instead of mutton because honestly, mutton's kind of difficult to get where we live, and we get all of these different options for proteins in different versions of this recipe. There's no right or wrong way to do this as far as proteins are concerned. If there's anything tough in that beef, just go ahead and get it out, unless you want to cook it for a really long time and let that break down, which is probably what they would have done in the 18th century. And then we're gonna work on our pork. We're just gonna cube that up too and get that all in the pot. Now this is gonna need to cook for a while. She says a half hour before you take it up. About the time that we put in our lobster, we're gonna also go ahead and put in our drop biscuits, and we'll make those really simply with a little bit of salt, flour, and water. We're gonna boil it for another half hour. Everything should be nice and done by then. And really what we're going for here is, when we think about a stew, at least here in the Midwest in America, we think about this kind of thickened broth, usually with flour or cornstarch. We want this to kind of act like a stew, and what these greens are gonna do is they're gonna break down and they're gonna be part of the body of that broth when it all comes together. At that point, we're gonna add our salt and our pepper, and we're gonna decide how much spice we want in this. Now, this should be spicy. I mean, there are definitely, everybody's got opinions about this in the time period. There's even a reference to this being the devil's broth. So we need to make this spicy. I wanna see if we can ride that line between like, I can't eat any more of this and it's just there, right? So that's what we're gonna try to do. I'm gonna taste it as I go, and we're gonna keep adding cayenne pepper until it feels like this is just on the edge of unbearable, because we really wanna see what's going on here. And it's hard to know in the time period, what did they think was spicy, right? So European folks are not known for like loving their spicy food. So maybe it was like one of those things where ketchup's too spicy, I don't know, but we're gonna take it to the limit on this video.
Ryan's got this pepper pot done and it smells good. It definitely has that, you've got some seafood smell to it, which it didn't have that much in it, but the smell comes through.
It's funny how much it comes out.
But it looks really good, like a wonderful thick stew. I'm thinking it's just not spicy enough.
Well, let's try it and see. We can add more.
Yeah, let's find out.
I poured a lot in there.
Well, maybe.
Oh, no, it's not spicy at all.
Not spicy. Well, wait. There's some there.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have enough.
I'm disappointed because I wanted this to be like, make my eyes water first bite. It's not doing that. I want to cut up one of these, put it in there and see what happens.
It's getting there.
It's getting there. It's not there.
Oh, yeah.
It's a kind of a slow burn, and then it comes on strong.
Yeah.
That makes it so much better, too.
Yeah.
There's like, adds another layer of depth of flavor. You smell the seafood, but do you taste it?
No.
No. It's just kind of all part of it in there.
No.
It doesn't need a whole lot of salt.
No. And the greens are totally broken down.
Yeah.
The dumpling turned out great. If you add enough cayenne pepper, you can turn it into anything you want. That's the great thing about this. We can make it mild. We can make it spicy over the top. We could use several different pepper varieties from the 18th century. We could use cayenne. We could put some bird pepper in there too, if we really wanted it to hit home. I think we found it. 18th century pepper pot. You won't believe it. You need to try it.